Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. So welcome back to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. My name's Julia Felton, and I'm going to be your host and guide for the next 15 to 20 minutes while we delve into everything teamwork. And today I wanted to talk about the role of middle managers in teams and in organizations. And I've been prompted to record this episode because I've been working with a lot of middle managers recently. And I think one of the biggest challenges that the middle managers are really struggling with right now is the pressure from above. So senior leadership asking them to do things, and the pressure from team members below who are also looking for support and direction from them. So this middle management area of the organization, I think, is massively overlooked, probably has been massively underinvested in over previous years. And yet all the research shows that middle managers actually have such a vital role in the organization in terms of fostering talent and helping create a really healthy organizational culture. And I just wanted to start with this quote, which I think sums it up really well, which is from a book called The Middle: Why Managers Hold the Keys to the Future of Work by Bill Shaniger and Brian Hancock and Emily Field. And the quote says, "Middle managers are the hidden powerhouses of organizations, carrying the culture and championing change from within." So actually what we're seeing is middle managers have such a crucial role within the organization, but as I said, are often really, really overlooked. And before we delve into the role, let's just get really clear about what organizational culture is and how middle managers impact that. Because organizational culture is the common set of behaviors, mindsets, and beliefs that shape how people work and interact. And the important thing is that organizational culture separates high performers from the rest. And at its heart, it's influenced by how the company harnesses the power of their middle managers and includes them in what is going on. Because middle managers, I believe, are an organization's most valuable asset, but they're typically underappreciated. And that certainly is a key finding that's been coming out from all of the training and coaching I've recently been doing with middle managers. Because I really don't think that many organizations understand this linchpin role that middle managers have between culture and performance. The middle managers are really helping shape the culture of the organization. They're really having a big impact on the talent agenda within the organization and whether team members want to stay. We know that 70% of people in an organization leave their manager rather than the organization. So middle managers have a really, really vital role to play in that regard. So what can we do to really help our middle managers? Because investing in them pays off literally within the organization. And a McKinsey study recognized that middle managers were really stuck in loads of administrative tasks rather than on focusing on work that makes the organization run, which is nurturing talent. So our middle managers, and again, this is what I've really been finding with all of the middle managers I've been coaching and training recently, is they feel like they're pulled apart. They have to get so many practical tasks done. They really have to execute on projects. And then at the same time, they're needing to coach and mentor and develop their team members. So this is why the role is so important, because they're an area of the organization that feels really stretched, both from above and below, and also, I think, horizontally in the number of things they need to get done. And yet we know, again, from research done in other studies, that top performing middle managers create really strong relationships that can enhance team performance and effectively drive the operation forward. So this is why I often describe middle managers as kind of a linchpin, because they help turn the organization's vision and strategic goals into reality. So they actually make things happen within the organization. And a piece of McKinsey research showed that having strong middle managers isn't just a nice to have in organizations, it's a business imperative, because organizations with top performing managers yield multiple times the shareholder value than those with average or below managers. So the performance of a business is very, very strongly impacted by how much we invest in our middle managers and what they do and how they behave and how they set the tone for the organization. So one of the things that came out of this McKinsey research was that they identified 11 managerial behaviors that directly impacted the performance of the business. And these are 11 of a total of 40 practices that McKinsey used to create their organizational health index. And there has been, again, a lot of research done that the healthier the organization, the more profitable, the better it performs. So what are these 11 behaviors that mid-managers do that are so crucial? Well, they're a real juxtaposition list. And I think this is also what can make being a middle manager really tricky, because we want them to be both strategic and tactical. We want them to be analytical and people-focused. And any of you will know of some of the work that I do that these are very, very different energies. So it's quite difficult. We want our middle managers to have such a variety of skills. And yet we know that people tend to be either more bigger picture or more detailed focused or more analytical or more people centric. And I know that that's a very, very sweeping generalization, because we can all do them all. But the way that we're trying to create middle manager roles where they are stretched in all of these different ways, I think is just proving very, very challenging. So as I said, these 11 behaviors are: we want middle managers to be creative and entrepreneurial. So we want them to support innovation and creativity. We want them to be open and trusting, encouraging healthy transparency and candid dialogue. We want them to be operationally disciplined, because we want them to focus on productivity and efficiency. We also want them to be challenging. We want them really to encourage their team members to do more than they thought was possible. And this is perhaps one of the areas where I see middle managers being weakest, is sometimes they don't like to challenge team members. And sometimes, in a desire to protect their team members, they don't actually delegate enough down to their team members and think, oh, it's easier if I do it, I'll just get on and do it myself. So they don't actually always challenge, I don't think, their team members as much as they could. We also want our middle managers to be consultative. We want them to empower the team members through communication and delegation. And we want them to be supportive, building a positive, happy environment and having great team harmony. We want them to be inspirational and guide and coach and recognize how their team members are doing. We also want them to be very participative. We want them to involve their team members in the direction of the organization. And yet we also want them to have personal ownership and drive the accountability and responsibility. And then we want them to have a stake in talent development by coaching and mentoring to develop the talents and skills of their team members. And I think this whole area of personal ownership particularly is very interesting, because again, a number of the teams that I've been working with, there was one particular team I was working with this week, and all of the middle managers said that the area where they were weakest within their overall team was accountability. And we know, if we think back to Patrick Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, we have the base, we have trust, then we have conflict, then we have commitment, then we have accountability, and then we have excellent business results. So we can't get excellent business results without having the accountability. So there is definitely this correlation between the stronger our middle managers, the better the bottom line performance. What can we do to help middle managers exhibit the behaviors that we really want them to have within the organization? And I think we could break these down into 5 areas. They're about having clear expectations, giving people targeted training where they need it, helping middle managers understand why their actions matter and how valuable they are within the organization. We also need to help our middle managers have inspiring role models so that they have somebody that they can mirror and watch and see what excellence behaviors looks like so they can role model it. And they also need to have a support system in place in terms of rewards and structures so they can get promoted. And again, one of the things that's been coming out from a lot of the training that I have been doing with these middle managers recently is that a lot of them are getting quite frustrated by senior leadership because senior leaders are telling them to do things and then senior leaders aren't role modeling what they want. So whether that's in the areas of inclusion and diversity or just in terms of health and well-being, middle managers being told to really look after the health and well-being of their team members, and yet their own line managers aren't engaging in any health and well-being conversations with them, or they are being given onerous amounts of work to get done on ridiculously tight timelines. And many of these middle managers aren't feeling empowered to give any sort of pushback. And I think one of the challenges is this prioritization issue that's going on, where because many people are working in a matrix environment right now, often your direct line boss sometimes doesn't even know all the projects you're doing because other people are also giving these middle managers projects. So they're ending up with a ridiculous amount of work on their plate, and nobody's got this cohesive view of everything that is going on for them. So I do think there's a need for our team members to feel a bit more empowered that they can, in fact, push back and actually say, well, actually, I can't get this piece of work done by 12 o'clock on Friday, but I could get it done by close of business on Monday. Because actually, many times when I think middle managers have been given deadlines on projects, it's just because we want to get stuff done within the organization. And I totally understand that. But sometimes those deadlines aren't fixed in stone and they could be pushed back. And it would just make everyone's life so much easier. And we would avoid something that I'm beginning to see increasingly happen, which is middle managers becoming burnt out. So let's just look now and delve into 5 steps that can help strengthen middle managers' performance. So first of all, it's about creating the right atmosphere for middle managers to be a force multiplier and help them understand what value they bring to the organization. Because again, I think a lot of middle managers don't really understand the value they're bringing, and therefore that's sometimes why they can get dragged into all of the detail or deciding it's easier to do the job themselves, rather than really recognizing that what their role is to help develop and mentor and grow the rest of the organization. So unleashing the power of the middle starts with the organizational structure and role design. Because we can't expect our middle managers to become inspiring leaders and strategic thinkers if they're constantly juggling competing demands and simply don't have the time to step back and think big. And again, this is such a big theme that actually has come out pretty much all year with most of the people I've been coaching. and even some of them have been relatively senior, where they are getting feedback from, say, 360-degree feedback that they need to be more strategic, but they just don't have the bandwidth to do that. They're just so stuck in the tactical, the play in the woods for the trees piece, that they just don't have time to look up and see what needs to happen. So there's something perhaps around how we structure roles so that we can set our middle managers up for success strategically and make sure they've got the right accountability structures in place and the right capabilities in order to do this. So one of the things that we can do is to really have a look at the number of team members reporting into each middle manager. Is it enough? Is it too much? That's always a little bit of a dilemma, because I see a lot of middle managers being very, very protective of their teams, which is great and also has a challenge, because what it's meaning then is that in order to be protective of their teams, the middle manager is taking on more and more work themselves, and this is what's leading to burnout. So there's also probably something around here about the level of administrative and bureaucratic tasks that middle managers are having to do. And I think the level of bureaucracy is really a barometer of the effectiveness of the organization. And a lot of middle managers are spending one day or more than a day a week doing administrative tasks, which is therefore taking away their time from the things that we really want them to do, which is developing talent and being much more strategic in the organization. So we need to perhaps find some ways to eliminate the unnecessary meetings. That's always something that middle managers tell me. They're in loads and loads of meetings. They don't have time to do things. So how can we streamline some of the processes and the complex approval processes as well? That's another thing that people are giving me feedback about. The complex approval processes, that means it takes forever to get things done. And then the middle managers feel hampered because they want to get work done, but they don't have sign off from somebody else in the organization. In fact, just at the end of last week, I was speaking with a middle manager who has taken over 3 months to get some sign off on new team members being hired into the organization. And now the role has become available and they've got the sign off. The person they want to hire isn't at a grade that's already been available within the organization. So they're now going to have to repeat that process again. So all of these things just add an extra burden to the middle manager's role, which, as we said, is already stretched at the moment. So maybe there's some stuff that can happen with AI to help middle managers in that regard. I think another thing that as leaders that we can do to really help our middle managers is really make sure that they have a clear vision of what needs to happen within the company, what we want to achieve, and that we can provide them then with any upskilling that they require. Because we really need to ensure that our middle managers are able to balance the business strategy with the values of the organization. So I think there's a lot that we can do there. And we also want to drill down into the manager's experience. And again, research has shown, and I've alluded to this already, that middle managers are the most burnt out job level across the organization. And there's a huge purpose gap that exists between frontline managers and executives. So given the vitality that middle managers bring to the organization, I really think that as leaders, we need to protect and prioritize their experience so that they can balance getting work done with their own well-being. So some of that involves us, as I said, in making sure that middle managers understand the purpose, what their role is, and really help them see how important the role of the middle manager is to the overall success of the organization. I think as well within the whole role of middle managers, we still have some inclusion issues going on. So there was some statistics out from 2022 that showed for Every 100 men promoted to managerial roles, only 87 were women and 82 women of color. So again, we need to look at whether we have a diverse enough workforce out there. And we need to create mentorship programs to really help people, particularly from underrepresented backgrounds, to make sure that they have the skills and resources to have the opportunity to be promoted into these roles. And even though middle managers are stretched, when talking to a number of them, they also want to develop themselves, and they are all looking for opportunities to take on new projects. And they're excited about that, but often sometimes feel that they can't step up and make themselves available because they're just not really sure that they've got the bandwidth to do that. So I think as leaders, we need to be really cognizant of that and figure out, well, how can we give our middle managers some more exciting projects so that they can grow and develop, whilst at the same time enabling them to get all of the workload done that they have on their plate. And finally, I think because middle managers often feel overlooked within the organization, it's really important that we have some good reward mechanisms in place, that we have some feedback loops in place, so that middle managers really understand how valuable they are to the organization, and they get continual feedback on their performance and how they're doing, so that they continue to grow. And as I said, we know that the more that our middle managers grow, the more they will be able to help grow the business, improve the performance, and importantly, help us retain great talent within the business. You know, we've been through a massive war on talent. We still have that. So it is super important that we recognize that our middle managers are really, really vital in helping us retain great people within our organizations. Because at the end of the day, our middle managers are the change agents. And they are in a position to, ideally, to help implement and guide strategic shifts in the business. They carry the culture, they embody the organization's values and influence how team members engage. They can really empower and drive effectiveness within the organization. And the more autonomy that we are able to give our middle managers, the more that this can increase their level of productivity and morale. Team members are also very, very pivotal in the communication process, and they are the role that bridges the executive vision with the execution. So I'd just like to close today again with another quote, which I think is super important, which is this: for a future-ready organization, giving middle managers a voice is non-negotiable. Because in the evolving landscape of work, the middle manager is the ultimate change agent. Middle managers are not just there to follow directives. They are there to shape the future of work. So my invitation to you this week is to really think about the middle managers in your organization. Do you really value them? And do you really appreciate the full impact that they can have on your business? Have you invested in them recently? Do they have the right level of training that they need to do their role? To balance the conflicting priorities of senior leadership with their team members. This need to be strategic and yet be detailed. This need to be analytical and yet also look after the team. So what can you do this week to help support your middle managers? Because as we've said, they are the linchpin of the organization, and yet, in my experience, are really, really going unrecognized. So these are some of my thoughts today on middle management, and I'd love to hear what you're doing within your organization and how you value the middle managers within your organization and the impact that they're having on the performance of the business. So until next week, have an amazing time. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?